The town of Maple Ridge was the kind of place that rarely made the news. Nestled between rolling cornfields and a sleepy highway, life there moved slowly, measured by the seasons and the whistle of freight trains that passed by twice a day. People there liked quiet things: Sunday church, backyard barbecues, and gossip that never reached beyond the county line. And in that quiet town lived a girl named Emily Carter, quiet, reserved, and often invisible. She wasn't the kind of girl people imagined wearing a uniform or holding a rifle. She wasn't bold or athletic, and she never tried to be. Emily preferred reading under oak trees, sketching in her worn notebook, or helping her mother in the small diner her family owned. Her voice was soft, her smile hesitant, and her dreams, as far as anyone knew, were small. She wanted to study nursing, maybe move to the city, maybe not. She never stood out, and that was fine with everyone, including her. The only person who believed Emily was destined for something greater was her older brother, Daniel. Daniel Carter was the town's golden boy, strong, confident, always the first to volunteer, the first to lead. When he joined the Marines at 20, the entire town celebrated. "He's going to make us proud," they'd say, patting Emily's shoulder. "You've got a brave brother there." Emily would nod, smiling politely, even though she hated the way they said your brother. "No one ever said you." Daniel's letters home were full of excitement, stories about training, friendships, exhaustion, and pride. Emily read every one of them twice. Sometimes she'd imagine herself there, running beside him through the mud, learning to shoot, to survive, to protect. But she never said that out loud. In Maple Ridge, girls didn't dream of battlefields. They dreamed of weddings and safe homes. Everything changed one winter morning when two Marines came to the diner. They didn't need to say anything. The folded flag in their hands said it all. Daniel was gone. A training accident, they called it. Wrong place, wrong time. Her father, a stoic factory worker, stared blankly as the men spoke. Her mother collapsed behind the counter. And Emily, she just stood there, numb, her hands trembling as she accepted the flag that was too heavy for its size. The funeral was quiet. The whole town showed up, not for her, but for Daniel, the hero they lost. People told Emily she should be proud. Proud of his service. Proud of his sacrifice. But pride was the last thing she felt. All she could feel was the unbearable question that clawed at her mind. Why him? Why not me? After the funeral, life moved on. For everyone except Emily, the diner reopened. Her father went back to work. Neighbors stopped bringing casseroles. The world, as it always does, forgot. But Emily couldn't. At night, she'd lie awake, staring at Daniel's medals on her dresser, remembering how he once told her, "You've got more fight in you than you think." She didn't believe him then. She did now. Spring came and went, and with it, Emily's patience. One morning, she stood in front of the mirror, her reflection pale but steady. She grabbed Daniel's dog tags, looped them around her neck, and whispered to her reflection, "It's my turn." That same afternoon, she drove to the nearest Army recruitment center, 40 miles away. The sergeant at the desk looked up as she entered, confusion flickering across his face. She didn't look like someone walking in to enlist. She looked like someone who had lost her way. "You're here for?" he began. "I want to enlist," she said firmly. He blinked. "You sure about that, miss?" I'm sure." Her voice was steady, but her heart raced. She signed the papers, took the tests, and faced the disbelieving looks that followed her every step. When she told her parents that night, the reaction was worse than she feared. Her father stared at her, jaw tight. "You're not serious." "I am," she said quietly. "I need to do this." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. You've already given enough, Emily. I haven't, she interrupted, her voice cracking. Daniel died doing what he believed in. I can't just sit here and pretend that's enough. I need to know why. Her father's chair scraped the floor as he stood. You think you'll find answers with a gun? You're not a soldier, Emily. You never were. That night, Emily packed her things in silence. She left before dawn, a note on the kitchen table. I'm doing this for him, and for me. Basic training was everything she expected, and worse. From the moment she arrived, she was the odd one out. The other recruits laughed at her size, her hesitation, her quietness. She failed her first endurance test, fell behind on drills, and once nearly passed out from exhaustion during a run. Her drill sergeant, a towering woman named Staff Sergeant Mason, barked at her constantly. You think this is summer camp, Carter? You think people out there care about your excuses? You either earn your place or you don't have one. At night, Emily would lie in her bunk, bruised and aching, wondering if everyone had been right. Maybe she didn't belong here. Maybe courage wasn't meant for her. But then she'd feel the cool weight of Daniel's dog tags against her skin, and she'd remember. Every failure became fuel. Every insult became fire. She woke earlier, trained harder, and learned faster. When others complained, she pushed. When they quit, she kept going. Slowly, painfully, she began to improve. Mason noticed it first. You don't give up easy, Carter, she muttered one morning after a successful field exercise. Keep that up, and you might just surprise me. By graduation, Emily wasn't the fastest or the strongest, but she was the one everyone wanted on their team. She had a quiet intensity that couldn't be taught, the kind that only came from loss and purpose. When her name was called during the ceremony, her heart swelled with pride. She had made it. She had done what no one thought she could. As the sun set that evening over the base, Emily sat alone by the flagpole, clutching her brother's dog tags. The wind whipped across the field, carrying the faint sound of laughter from the barracks. For the first time in a long time, she smiled. Daniel, she whispered, I'm not done yet. She didn't know where the road ahead would take her. The missions, the fear, the fire. All she knew was that for the first time in her life, she wasn't running from her pain. She was running toward her purpose. And soon, the world would know the name Emily Carter, not as the quiet girl from a small town, but as the soldier no one expected to fight. Until she did. Emily Carter's boots sank into the mud with a heavy squelch as the rain poured relentlessly over the training field. The sky was the color of gunmetal, and thunder rolled like a war drum. Drill instructors barked orders through the storm, their voices slicing through the chaos. Move, recruits. Move like your life depends on it, because one day it will. Emily's muscles screamed for rest, but she didn't slow down. The obstacle course had become her battlefield, a war not against others, but against the doubt that had shadowed her since the first day she arrived. Her body was soaked, her uniform weighed down with mud, but her eyes stayed locked forward. She had learned that hesitation was a luxury soldiers couldn't afford. By now, most of the recruits knew who she was, the girl who didn't belong. They didn't mean it cruelly anymore, not all of them at least, but it still lingered in the air. Every mistake she made, every stumble, felt magnified. She wasn't just proving herself. She was proving that someone like her could belong among them at all. During one grueling endurance test, she collapsed at the edge of the track. Her vision blurred, and every breath burned like fire. Sergeant Mason stood over her, arms crossed, rain dripping from her cap. Get up, Carter, she said. Emily struggled to push herself up, her body trembling. Mason crouched down, her voice low but firm. You can't fake strength, Carter. You either have it or you build it. Which one are you? Emily looked up, Her jaw clenched. "I'm building it, ma'am." "Then prove it." She did. Somehow, she found the strength to get back on her feet, running through the pain, the mud, and the storm. By the time she crossed the finish line, she was dead last, but she crossed it. Mason didn't say a word. She didn't need to. The faint nod she gave spoke volumes. That night, as the barracks went dark, Emily sat on her bunk, cleaning her boots in silence. Her hands were raw and blistered, but her mind was calm. Across the room, two recruits, Daniels and O'Neill, whispered to each other. "I'll give her this," Danielle said, glancing her way. "Girl doesn't quit." O'Neill smirked. "Yeah, but let's see her under real fire. Training's one thing, war's another." Emily pretended not to hear, but the words stung. She wasn't naive. She knew there was a difference. Yet something deep inside her whispered that when the moment came, she wouldn't freeze. She'd already lived through her worst day. Nothing could scare her more than losing Daniel. Weeks turned into months. Emily's endurance grew, her instincts sharpened, and her confidence took root. The once awkward recruit became a quiet force. She was never the loudest in the room, but when something went wrong, everyone looked to her. During weapons training, she was patient, methodical. While others boasted about speed, she focused on precision. One afternoon, an instructor set up a timed shooting test. The recruits laughed as she adjusted her rifle slowly, taking careful aim. When the timer beeped, her shots hit dead center, one after another. The range went silent. Sergeant Mason checked the target, then raised an eyebrow. "Perfect grouping, Carter. Didn't think you had it in you." Emily lowered her rifle, her tone even. "You told me to build strength, ma'am. I'm still building." Mason cracked the faintest smile. "You keep that up, and you might just make a soldier after all." Still, not everyone was impressed. There was always someone who needed to remind her of her place. One night in the mess hall, after a long day of drills, Private O'Neill sat down across from her, a smug grin on his face. "So, Carter," he said, stirring his coffee. "What's the plan? Gonna get through training, file some papers, and tell everyone back home you were a hero?" Emily didn't look up. "I'll let my work speak for me." O'Neill chuckled. "You think you'll ever see combat? Please. They'll stick you behind a desk or in supply. That's where they put people like you." She met his eyes, calm and unshaken. "Then I'll make sure that desk is the best defended one on base." His grin faltered. The table went quiet, and that was the last time anyone laughed at her openly. By the final month of training, Emily's transformation was undeniable. She wasn't just surviving, she was excelling. Her squad leader, Torres, a gruff, broad-shouldered man with 12 years of experience, had started watching her closely. He didn't talk much, but his approval was evident in the way he'd quietly assign her tougher roles. One late evening, during a night navigation exercise in the woods, their team got lost. The GPS malfunctioned, and tempers flared. "We're going in circles," one recruit complained. "This is pointless." Emily studied the stars for a moment, remembering a survival lecture from weeks earlier. "We're not lost," she said softly. "We've been following the wrong reference point." She pointed west. "If we move this way, we'll hit the river. From there, it's north to camp." Torres watched as the others followed her lead. Within 30 minutes, they were back on track. When they reached the base, he clapped her on the shoulder. "Good instincts, Carter. Remind me never to doubt your sense of direction." She smiled faintly. "I've been lost before. I don't plan on being lost again." Graduation day arrived beneath a clear blue sky. The recruits stood in formation, uniforms crisp, hearts pounding. As the commanding officer called out names, one by one, Emily's stomach churned with a strange mix of pride and disbelief. When her name echoed through the speakers, Private Emily Carter, a wave of emotion nearly knocked her breathless. Her parents sat in the audience. Her father's expression was unreadable, but her mother's eyes glistened with tears. When the ceremony ended, Emily walked toward them slowly, unsure of what to say. Her mother embraced her instantly. "You did it," she whispered. Her father hesitated, then extended his hand. "Your brother would have been proud." For the first time in years, Emily saw something in his eyes that wasn't disappointment. It was respect. That night, as the base lights flickered across the field, Emily sat alone on a bench, holding Daniel's dog tags in her palm. Around her, laughter and celebration filled the air, but her mind was already elsewhere, on the next challenge, the next test. The world beyond training would be harsher, more unpredictable. She knew that. But she also knew something else. She could handle it. She'd faced her doubts, her grief, and her limits, and she'd pushed through them all. When Sergeant Mason passed by, she stopped for a moment. "Carter," she called out. Emily looked up. "Yes, ma'am?" "You surprised me," Mason said. "You've got heart. That'll take you further than strength ever will. Don't lose it." Emily nodded. "I won't." As Mason walked away, Emily stared out into the night, her heartbeat steady, her purpose clear. She was no longer the girl from Maple Ridge, who lived in her brother's shadow. She was her own kind of soldier now, quiet, disciplined, and fiercely determined. She didn't know that soon. Fate would call her to prove that strength once more. Not in a classroom or a training field, but in the heat of battle, where every decision would mean life or death. And when that day came, Emily Carter, the one no one expected to fight, would show the world exactly what kind of warrior she had become. The roar of the engines filled the air as the C-17 transport plane cut through the clouds, carrying Emily and her unit toward a land she'd only ever seen on screens. Her helmet rested on her knees, her hands clasped tightly around Daniel's dog tags. Outside the window, the endless expanse of desert stretched to the horizon, golden, vast, and indifferent. Deployment. The word had always felt distant, almost mythical during training. But now, as the captain's voice came through the speakers announcing their descent, reality hit with the weight of 1,000 bricks. This wasn't a simulation anymore. There were no instructors, no second chances, and no safety net. "First time overseas?" Sergeant Torres asked, leaning slightly toward her. Emily nodded. "Feels unreal," he chuckled softly. "It'll feel real soon enough." Torres was one of those soldiers who carried his confidence like armor. 12 years in uniform, 2 tours behind him, and the kind of quiet authority that made people listen without question. To Emily, he represented everything she aspired to become: steady, unshaken, and trusted. When they landed at Forward Operating Base Carson, the heat slammed into her like a wall. It wasn't just hot, it was punishing. Dust clung to everything. Boots, faces, even the air seemed heavy with it. The smell of fuel, sweat, and sand filled her lungs as she stepped off the plane. Around her, helicopters thundered overhead and armored trucks rumbled by, each one a reminder that she was far from the calm fields of Maple Ridge. Her unit was part of a logistics battalion, the unseen lifeline that kept the frontline units alive. They moved supplies, repaired vehicles, and maintained the flow that kept missions running. It wasn't glamorous, but it was essential. And Emily quickly learned that in war, even a non-combat role could turn deadly in seconds. She threw herself into her work. While others complained about the monotony, she thrived on the structure. Every piece of gear she inspected, every crate she logged, every convoy she planned, it all mattered. Mistakes here cost lives out there. Her focus, her discipline, and her refusal to cut corners didn't go unnoticed. Still, some soldiers didn't know what to make of her. She wasn't loud or boastful, and that quiet confidence unsettled people. In the mess hall, whispers followed her. The girl who never talks, the one who outran her drill sergeant, the ghost with perfect aim. One afternoon, while repairing a truck axle under the sweltering sun, a mechanic named Carter, no relation, squatted beside her. "You don't mind getting your hands dirty, do you?" Emily smiled faintly, wiping grease from her forehead. "A soldier's job isn't supposed to be clean." He grinned. "You've got that right. You ever think about transferring to a combat unit? You've got the nerves for it." She paused, tightening the wrench. "I'm right where I need to be." It wasn't false modesty. Emily knew she wasn't here to chase glory. She was here because she believed every life depended on people like her, the ones who made sure the fuel flowed, the vehicles ran, and the food got there on time. But deep down, she also knew that one day the fight might come to her doorstep. That day came sooner than she expected. It started with a radio call at dawn. A supply convoy bound for a remote outpost had lost contact. One of the trucks had broken down halfway through a mountain pass, and insurgent activity was reported in the area. The replacement team was being assembled, and they needed a driver. Emily volunteered before she even realized what she was saying. Torres looked at her, eyebrows raised. "You sure about that, Carter? You've only been here 3 weeks." She nodded. "I'm sure." He studied her for a moment, then sighed. "All right. You're on my truck. But you follow my orders. No hero moves. Got it?" "Got it, Sergeant." The convoy rolled out just as the sun began to climb, the desert air shimmering with heat. The armored trucks kicked up plumes of dust as they moved through the barren landscape. Emily sat behind the wheel, her hands steady, eyes scanning the horizon. Her heart raced, but she forced her breathing to stay even. Torres sat beside her, occasionally checking the map. "Remember," he said, "the road's quiet until it's not. Trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is." "Understood." They drove for hours, crossing dry riverbeds and winding roads flanked by jagged cliffs. The radio crackled with static. Sweat dripped into Emily's eyes, but she didn't blink. Every shadow, every glint of light made her pulse quicken. Then, just past the halfway point, the lead vehicle stopped. "Obstacle on the road," came the voice over the radio. "Looks like debris. Could be an IED trap." The convoy halted. Emily's grip tightened on the wheel. She watched as 2 soldiers stepped out to inspect the blockage. The seconds stretched painfully. The desert was silent. Too silent. Then, boom! The explosion ripped through the air, a deafening blast that shook the ground and sent a cloud of sand skyward. Emily flinched, instinctively ducking as shards of rock and metal clattered against the truck's armor. The radio erupted in chaos. "Contact front! Contact front!" Gunfire followed, echoing off the cliffs. Emily's heart pounded as Torres shouted orders. "Move, Carter! Reverse! Get us behind that ridge!" Her training kicked in. She slammed the gear into reverse, backing the truck swiftly as bullets pinged off the armor. Her world had narrowed to the sound of her breath, the roar of the engine, and Torres' voice cutting through the chaos. "Stay calm. Keep your distance." Another explosion hit a few meters ahead, throwing dirt and smoke into the air. Emily's knuckles went white on the wheel. For a moment, fear clawed at her throat, raw and primal, but she forced it down. She couldn't freeze. Not now. When the firing finally subsided, the convoy regrouped. 2 soldiers were injured, but alive. The lead vehicle was wrecked beyond repair. They couldn't move forward or back. The road was too exposed. Torres called it in, but the radio signal was weak. "Command, this is Convoy Delta. We've been hit." Requesting static swallowed his voice. He cursed under his breath. "We're blind out here." Emily swallowed hard. "What do we do now?" He looked at her, his expression unreadable. "We wait. Keep our eyes open." "You did good, Carter. You kept calm. That's the hardest part." She nodded, though her hands still trembled. The silence after the fight was deafening, a reminder of how thin the line between life and death could be. When they finally made it back to base hours later, word of the ambush spread quickly. Some of the soldiers clapped her on the shoulder, calling her iron nerves. She didn't feel like a hero. She felt lucky. But that night, lying in her bunk, she realized something profound. She hadn't frozen. She had done what she came to do. She stayed calm, made it through, and brought her team home. Torres stopped by her bunk before lights out. "Carter," he said, leaning against the doorway. "Most people panic their first time under fire. You didn't. You've got the right instincts." "Thank you, Sergeant." He gave a small nod. "Next time, it won't be luck. It'll be skill. Keep sharpening it." When he left, Emily turned over Daniel's dog tags in her hand. The metal was warm against her skin. She whispered, "I think I'm starting to understand, Danny." Outside, the desert wind howled through the base, carrying the scent of sand and diesel. For the first time, Emily didn't feel like a stranger to this world. She was a soldier now, one who had earned her place, not through words or promises, but through fire. And though she didn't know it yet, this was only the beginning of the story that would make her name unforgettable. The weeks after the ambush were tense. Every convoy that rolled out of Forward Operating Base Carson carried the weight of what had happened. The desert, once just a sea of sand and rock, now felt alive, watching, waiting. Even the wind seemed sharper, whispering warnings through the fences at night. Emily had changed since that day. The fear was still there, lurking somewhere deep, but it no longer controlled her. She'd faced it, stared it down, and survived. Every night she replayed the ambush in her head, analyzing every second. What she did right, what she could have done better. She wasn't obsessed with glory. She was determined to never be caught unprepared again. Her routine became relentless. Up before dawn, training until her muscles screamed. She practiced weapon drills long after others left the range. She memorized convoy procedures, radio codes, and emergency protocols until she could recite them in her sleep. Some called her intense. Others just called her machine. Torres noticed. One morning, he found her alone on the range, firing at distant silhouettes. The sun was barely rising, painting the horizon blood red. "You planning to fight the whole war by yourself?" he asked, stepping beside her. Emily reloaded calmly. "Just trying to be ready." He nodded. "You're already better prepared than half the men here. But readiness doesn't mean perfection. It means trust in your team, in your instincts." She lowered her rifle, glancing at him. "And in yourself?" "Especially in yourself," he said. "Because when the bullets start flying, that's all you've got." A few days later, the call came. A forward patrol base, located deep in a valley near the mountains, was running dangerously low on supplies. Enemy presence in the area was increasing, and previous convoys had been attacked. The command needed volunteers for a high-risk delivery. Emily didn't hesitate. When she stepped into the briefing room, Torres was already there, along with a handful of veterans, Staff Sergeant Lewis, Medic Ortiz, and 2 drivers, Green and Mathers. The atmosphere was thick with tension. Everyone knew what they were walking into. Torres raised an eyebrow when he saw her. "You volunteering again, Carter?" "Yes, Sergeant." He exhaled slowly. "You've got guts. I'll give you that." The mission was straightforward on paper. Deliver ammunition, food, and medical supplies to Outpost Valor, an isolated base surrounded by rocky terrain and narrow passes. But the route Red Line was notorious. Convoys had been ambushed there more than once. As Torres briefed them on the plan, Emily studied the map intently. The valley's layout was tight, cliffs on both sides, minimal cover, one way in, one way out. The perfect kill zone if someone wanted to set a trap. Lewis noticed her focus. "You got something on your mind, Carter?" She pointed to a bend on the map. "This curve here, it's the most likely ambush point. Limited visibility, and it opens into a chokehold. If I were them, that's where I'd hit." Torres smiled slightly. "Good eye." The team spent the rest of the day preparing. Emily checked and rechecked the vehicles. Tire pressure, fuel levels, armor plating, turret rotation. Every bolt, every wire mattered. Her attention to detail had become almost legendary in the unit. Before they departed at dawn, she slipped Daniel's dog tags around her neck again. They weren't just a keepsake anymore. They were her promise, to fight, to endure, and to come back alive. The convoy rolled out under the rising sun. The desert stretched endlessly before them, vast and silent except for the growl of engines. Emily drove the second vehicle, Torres in the lead. Hours passed with nothing but dust and heat. The radio crackled occasionally. Routine check-ins, status updates, nothing unusual. Yet the tension in the air was palpable. Everyone was alert, scanning every ridge and shadow. As they neared the valley, the terrain changed. The road narrowed, hemmed in by rocky cliffs. Emily's knuckles tightened around the wheel. The memory of the last ambush flickered in her mind like lightning. Torres' voice came over the radio. "Stay sharp, team. We're entering Red Line." The silence that followed was heavy. Every bump of the truck, every gust of wind sounded amplified. The world seemed to hold its breath. Then, a glint of metal on the ridge. "Contact, right side." Someone yelled. The next instant, the air exploded with gunfire. Bullets hammered the trucks, echoing off the cliffs. Emily swerved instinctively, slamming the brakes as rockets streaked across the road, detonating in a storm of sand and fire. "Ambush! Move! Move!" Torres roared. The convoy split formation. Smoke and dust filled the air, turning the world into chaos. Emily ducked behind the armored windshield, heart pounding. The gunner on the turret above her fired back, the sound deafening. She could barely see through the haze, but she spotted figures moving on the ridges, insurgents firing down on them. Her instincts screamed, "We're pinned." Lewis shouted over the comms, "We've got wounded." Torres' voice crackled through the radio, calm but firm. "Carter, get that truck up the left incline. We need cover fire." Without hesitation, she floored the accelerator, steering the heavy vehicle up a side slope. Rocks tumbled beneath the tires as bullets sparked off the armor. Her gunner unleashed suppressive fire, buying precious seconds for the others to regroup. But halfway up the incline, the engine coughed, then died. "Engine failure," she shouted. "Damn it, we can't stop here." Torres barked. "Carter, you've got 30 seconds before they flank us." Emily's mind raced. Training and instinct collided in a blur. She jumped out of the cab, wrench in hand, diving under the truck even as rounds kicked up dirt around her. The heat from the engine seared her skin. She spotted the issue, a dislodged fuel line. With trembling hands, she clamped it back in place, twisting it tight. "Come on, come on." Another explosion shook the ground. She could hear Torres shouting orders in the distance. Gritting her teeth, she slammed the hood shut, jumped back into the cab, and turned the key. The engine roared to life. "Yes," she hissed. She hit the come. "We're back online." Torres' voice came through, relief evident. "Good work, Carter. Push forward and draw their fire. We'll flank from the right." She gunned the engine, driving the truck higher up the slope. The gunner's rounds rained down on the enemy positions. For the first time since the attack began, the insurgents began to scatter. Minutes later, the firefight died down. The smoke began to clear, revealing the aftermath. Bullet-riddled trucks, burned rubber, and the sharp smell of gunpowder. Emily's hands trembled as she turned off the ignition. Her uniform was soaked in sweat, her ears ringing. Slowly, she stepped out of the cab and looked around. Torres approached, his face streaked with dust and soot. "You all right?" She nodded, though her voice cracked. Yeah, I think so." He looked at the truck, then back at her, shaking his head in disbelief. "You kept us alive out there. That engine stunt, that was insane." Emily managed a faint smile. "It worked." Torres gave her a long look. "You know, most people would have frozen under that fire. But you moved like you've done this 100 times. You've got something rare, Carter, the kind of calm that saves lives." The others gathered around, some clapping her on the shoulder, others just nodding silently. Respect, real respect. Not because she was a woman who survived, but because she was a soldier who led when it mattered most. That night, as the convoy finally reached Outpost Valor under a blood-red sunset, Emily stood beside her truck, staring at the horizon. She thought of Daniel again, his laugh, his quiet courage, the way he'd believed she could do more. "Guess I'm finally proving you right," she whispered into the wind. Behind her, Torres called out, "Carter, get some rest." "You earned it." As she turned back toward the camp, she knew something had shifted, not just in how others saw her, but in how she saw herself. She wasn't the quiet recruit from Maple Ridge anymore. She was Emily Carter, the soldier who wouldn't break, no matter the fire. And soon, the world would see exactly what that meant. The convoy's return to base was supposed to be a victory, the kind that earned a unit a day of rest and quiet pride. But for Emily Carter, rest never came easily anymore. The desert dust hadn't even settled before she was back in the motor pool, wiping oil from her hands and replaying every sound of that ambush in her head, a snap of gunfire, the hiss of shrapnel, the deafening silence after the last shot. Every mission left its mark, and this one had left a dozen. The base's radio chatter was full of rumors about the ambush, about how Carter had kept the engine running under fire, about how Torres' squad had come out alive when others hadn't. Some called her lucky. Others whispered that she was reckless. To Emily, it didn't matter what they said. What mattered was that they'd survived. But Torres noticed the shift too. At breakfast the next morning, the mess hall went quiet when she entered. A few soldiers nodded to her, respect in their eyes, but others just stared. She could almost hear their thoughts. "She's not supposed to be that good. Fame's a double-edged sword," Torres muttered as she sat across from him. "People start seeing you as a symbol, not a soldier. Some like it. Some don't." "I didn't ask to be a symbol," she replied, sipping her coffee. "No one ever does," he said. "But you earned that spotlight. Just keep your head down. The higher-ups don't always appreciate when someone breaks the mold." He was right. The next few days proved it. It began with Lieutenant Grayson, a newly arrived officer with sharp eyes and an ego twice as large as his rank. He'd heard about Emily's performance and didn't like it. To him, the military ran on hierarchy, not heroics. During a debrief session, he paced the front of the room, scanning the soldiers like a hawk. "We've had too many deviations from standard protocol," he said. "Freelancing gets people killed. We're soldiers, not cowboys. Emily kept her expression neutral. Grayson turned sharply. Private Carter. She stood. Sir, care to explain why you disobeyed the standard defensive formation during the Red Line ambush? I didn't disobey, sir, she said calmly. The formation broke when the second vehicle was hit. I moved position to draw enemy fire away from the wounded. His lips twitched. So you decided to rewrite battlefield procedure mid-firefight? Torres spoke up. With respect, sir, Carter's maneuver saved half the convoy. Grayson's gaze shifted to him, then back to her. Next time, follow orders to the letter. We don't reward improvisation. The room fell silent. Emily's jaw tightened, but she said nothing. She understood, in the military, politics could be more dangerous than bullets. That evening, she found herself sitting by the perimeter fence, staring into the fading sunset. The wind carried the scent of dust and fuel, and the low hum of generators filled the air. Ortiz, the medic from her squad, joined her quietly. He's got it out for you, he said, handing her a canteen. Yeah, she muttered. He doesn't like what he can't control. Ortiz chuckled softly. That's the army for you. People like Grayson climb ranks because they follow rules. People like you survive because you know when to break them. She smiled faintly. Not sure that's a compliment. It's survival, he said simply. They sat in silence for a while, watching the horizon. In the distance, thunder rumbled, not from a storm, but from artillery training exercises. Ortiz glanced at her dog tags. You wear those every day? She nodded. They were my brother's. He died 2 years ago. Afghanistan. He hesitated. Same place we're heading next, huh? Yeah, she whispered. Same mountains. Same dirt. 2 weeks later, Emily's unit received new orders, a joint operation with Grayson's command. Their task, escort a convoy of local translators and supply vehicles to an Allied village near the foothills. It was supposed to be a simple, low-risk mission. But the moment she heard Grayson was leading it, Emily's stomach tightened. His arrogance wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. He believed confidence was a substitute for caution. The operation began at dawn. The convoy moved through rolling dunes and sparse scrubland, the morning air thick with heat. Emily drove the lead support vehicle, Torres behind her, and Grayson in the command truck. Everything seemed routine at first, too routine. Halfway to the village, Emily noticed something strange. The road ahead curved near a dry riverbed, and there, half buried in sand, was a pile of rocks that looked arranged. Her instincts screamed. Torres, she said over the radio, check the left flank. That debris, it's too uniform. Could be an ID trigger point. Before Torres could respond, Grayson's voice cut in. Negative. Keep moving. We're behind schedule. Sir, with respect. That's an order, Private. Emily clenched her teeth. Every sense in her body told her to stop, but she followed the command. The convoy rolled forward. Another 20 meters, and then the world exploded. A thunderous blast tore through the front truck, flipping it like a toy. Sand and fire filled the air. Emily's vehicle slammed to a halt, her head cracking against the window. Dazed, she looked up, smoke, screaming chaos. Ambush! Torres yelled. We're under fire. Gunshots rained from the ridge. Grayson's command truck was hit, the windshield spiderwebbing with cracks. He was shouting into the radio, panicked, his orders jumbled and conflicting. Emily shook off the shock. We need cover, she shouted, pulling open her door. Get the wounded behind the ridge. She sprinted through the smoke, dragging a wounded translator to safety. Bullets whistled past, kicking up sand inches from her boots. Ortiz joined her, applying pressure to a soldier's leg wound. Grayson's frozen. He yelled. "We're losing control." Torres' voice came through the comms. "Carter, you're up. Take command and coordinate the fallback." She hesitated only a second before grabbing the radio. "All units, suppress fire on the ridge. Green, cover left. Ortiz, medevac priority 1-2 wounded. Move now." Her tone was calm, authoritative. The chaos began to turn into structure. The soldiers responded instinctively to her voice. Emily spotted Grayson still sitting in the cab, staring blankly ahead. She ran to him, yanking open his door. "Sir, we need to move." He looked at her, eyes wide. "They'll kill us all. Not if we fight back." She snapped. She pulled him from the seat and shoved him toward cover. "Get your head together, or stay down. Your choice." He didn't argue. The firefight raged for another 10 minutes before backup arrived. The insurgents retreated into the mountains, leaving silence and the smell of smoke behind. When it was over, Emily was covered in grime, her hands shaking from adrenaline. Several soldiers were injured, but alive, because she'd taken control when no one else could. Back at base, the official report painted the mission as a coordinated response under pressure. But word spread fast. Everyone knew who had really led that fight. Grayson tried to downplay it, but even command couldn't ignore the eyewitness accounts. Torres filed a commendation on her behalf. One night, as she cleaned her gear, Torres approached her. "You did good out there," he said. She sighed. "I broke protocol again." He smirked. "Maybe. But you also broke Death's handhold. That counts for something." For the first time in weeks, she allowed herself a small laugh. "Guess that makes us even." He nodded. "Keep that edge, Carter. It's what's keeping this unit alive." Later that night, Emily sat by the barracks window, watching the desert stars. The wind howled softly outside, carrying with it the echoes of the day. She pulled Daniel's dog tags from her neck, running her thumb across the worn metal. "I'm still here," she whispered. "Still fighting." Outside, the distant boom of artillery echoed again, a reminder that war was never far. But now, Emily Carter wasn't just surviving it. She was shaping it. And before long, the battle that would define her forever was coming. One that would test everything she'd built and everything she believed in. The air at Forward Operating Base Carson was different after the ambush. There was a tension that never seemed to fade, a quiet edge that clung to every conversation and shadow. Soldiers moved with sharper eyes and quicker reflexes. Emily Carter could feel it in the air like static before a storm. She'd earned the respect of her unit, maybe even their trust, but with it came something heavier, expectation. Whenever a mission came in, people's eyes turned toward her. Not Torres, not Grayson her. And now there was a new mission, one that everyone quietly called suicide. Outpost Orion, a small recon station buried deep in the mountains, had gone silent 3 days ago. No radio contact, no satellite response. Intelligence suggested heavy insurgent presence in the surrounding valleys. The command wanted a small team to investigate, extract any survivors, recover intel, and get out fast. Emily's heart sank as she read the orders. She'd heard of Orion. It was isolated, surrounded by cliffs and narrow canyons, the kind of terrain that could swallow a squad whole. Torres looked grim during the briefing. "Command wants answers, but this feels wrong. We don't have proper recon. No air support. Just a get in and check it out directive." Grayson, still bruised from his previous humiliation, stood stiffly at the edge of the table. "Orders are orders. We go in, we follow protocol, and we get back." Emily studied the map. The pass into Orion runs through 3 choke points. If the enemy's waiting, We'll walk right into it. Grayson shot her a glare. Then don't give them a reason to fire. Torres intervened before the tension could boil. We're taking 2 Humvees, Carter, Ortiz, Green, and me. Grayson will coordinate from base. Grayson frowned. You're taking Carter again? Torres didn't blink. I trust her judgment. Grayson said nothing, but his expression made it clear. He didn't like that answer. They departed before dawn, the mountains painted gold by the rising sun. Emily sat behind the wheel, her eyes scanning the horizon. The world looked peaceful, but she'd learned long ago that peace in a war zone was just the silence before chaos. As they drove, the radio crackled intermittently, faint transmissions from other patrols, bursts of static, and then nothing. Ortiz, sitting in the back, tried to break the silence. So, Carter, when this is all over, what's the first thing you're going to do? Emily smiled faintly. Sleep in a real bed. Maybe drive somewhere without worrying about landmines. Torres chuckled. Sounds like heaven. They laughed, but the mood was tight. Everyone felt it. Something was off. Hours later, they reached the entrance to the canyon leading to Outpost Orion. The rocky walls loomed high, blocking the sunlight. The convoy slowed to a crawl. Emily's hands tightened on the steering wheel. This feels wrong, she muttered. Torres scanned the cliffs with binoculars. No movement. But that doesn't mean it's clear. She exhaled slowly. If they're watching, we've already been spotted. The road narrowed even more. The canyon was eerily quiet. No birds, no wind. Just the crunch of tires on gravel and the distant echo of engines bouncing off stone. Then, a flicker of movement. Emily's eyes snapped upward. Top ridge. 11 o'clock. Contact! Torres shouted. Gunfire erupted from above. The first burst ripped into the lead Humvee, sparks flying. Emily swerved hard, steering behind a boulder for cover. The teen bailed out, returning fire up the slopes. The sound was deafening, bullets slamming into rock, ricocheting in every direction. Dust and smoke filled the air. Carter, flank right, Torres ordered. She sprinted across the canyon floor, keeping low, rifle tight against her shoulder. She fired in controlled bursts, hitting shadows between the rocks. Ortiz crawled toward a wounded soldier, dragging him behind cover. We're pinned. Green yelled. We can't move. Torres shouted into the radio. Command, this is Bravo Team. We're ambushed at grid Alpha 7. Requesting immediate air support. Static, no response. Emily ducked as a rocket slammed into the ground nearby, throwing her off her feet. Her ears rang, vision blurring. For a moment, all she could hear was her heartbeat. Heavy, frantic, pounding. Then she saw it, a small cave opening along the ridge, half hidden by rubble. It could be their only escape route. She crawled to Torres' position. There's cover up there. We can move through the ridge. He glanced, then nodded. All right. You lead. Ortiz, Green, cover fire. Move. They broke from cover, sprinting across open ground as bullets tore through the air. Emily felt one graze her arm, but didn't stop. She reached the cave and turned to cover the others as they followed. Once inside, the gunfire faded slightly, muffled by stone. The narrow tunnel was dark, cold, and claustrophobic. The smell of gunpowder lingered in the air. Torres caught his breath, wiping blood from his cheek. Everyone in one piece? Green's hit, Ortiz said, applying pressure to a wound on Green's leg. He can move, but not fast. Then we'll move slow, Torres said. Emily took point, flashlight sweeping across the walls. The tunnel seemed to wind deeper into the mountain. If this connects to the outpost, we might have a shot. They moved cautiously, each step echoing. The deeper they went, the more Emily's instincts screamed that something wasn't right. After what felt like forever, they saw light ahead, faint, flickering. Torres raised his fist for silence. They crept closer. The tunnel opened into a small cavern, and there, illuminated by a single hanging lamp, were the remnants of Outpost Orion. Crates, scattered weapons, and blood-stained walls. Ortiz whispered, "My God." It looked like a massacre. No bodies, just chaos, as if everyone had vanished mid-battle. Emily crouched, examining the floor. Footprints, fresh. "They're not gone," she said softly. "They were taken." Torres nodded grimly. "Then we're not leaving empty-handed. We find out who did this." Suddenly, a sound echoed through the tunnel behind them. Footsteps. Many of them. Emily turned sharply. They followed us. Within seconds, gunfire erupted again, this time closer, deafening inside the cave. Bettine dove for cover. Rocks splintered as bullets hit the walls. Torres returned fire. "We're boxed in." Emily's mind raced. Then she saw it, a narrow vent shaft above them. Too small for the whole team, but big enough for one. "Torres, give me the drive," she shouted, pointing to the intel pack on his vest. "If they take this, it's over." He hesitated. "You're not going alone. I can get through and call for extraction. You stay with the wounded." "Carter." She met his eyes, fierce and steady. "You said to trust my instincts. This is it." For a moment, he looked ready to argue. Then he handed her the data drive. "You better come back." "I plan to." Emily climbed up the narrow vent as bullets whizzed below. The metal scraped her arms raw, but she kept going. At the top, she emerged into the blinding sunlight of the upper ridge. Below, she could see the smoke from the firefight, her team still pinned down. She raised her radio, voice shaking but determined. "This is Private Carter, Bravo Team. We are under heavy fire near Orion. Coordinates incoming, requesting airstrike, immediate." Static. Then, finally, a voice. "Copy that, Carter. Air support inbound. 3 minutes." 3 minutes felt like forever. She knelt behind a rock, watching as the insurgents moved in on her team. Her chest burned with helpless rage. Then she spotted a sniper lining up on Torres. Without thinking, she took aim and fired. One shot, clean and perfect. The sniper dropped instantly. The rest turned toward her position, opening fire. Emily ducked, firing back, keeping them distracted just long enough. Then the sky roared. Fighter jets screamed overhead, dropping precision strikes across the canyon. The ground trembled as explosions ripped through the cliffs. The enemy scattered, their attack collapsing under the assault. When the smoke cleared, silence fell again, heavy and absolute. Emily slid down the ridge, coughing from dust and adrenaline. She found Torres and Ortiz alive, battered but breathing. Green lay unconscious but stable. Torres looked at her, disbelief in his eyes. "You called them in. You saved us again." Emily sank to her knees, exhausted. "Just doing my job." Back at base that night, Grayson read the report with cold fury. Another mission where Carter had defied protocol, taken command, and brought everyone home alive. But for Emily, there was no celebration, just exhaustion, grief, and the unshakable feeling that something larger was coming. The attack on Orion wasn't random. It was planned, precise. Someone had known they were coming. And as she stared at the blood-stained intel drive on her desk, she began to realize the truth. The real war wasn't just out there in the desert. It was inside the walls of her own command. The night after the Orion mission was too quiet. The kind of silence that presses on your chest and refuses to let you breathe. Emily sat alone in the dim barracks, staring at the small flash drive on the table, the one they'd recovered from the ruins of Outpost Orion. It was nothing more than a silver rectangle of metal and plastic, but she could feel the weight of it like 1,000 pounds. She had almost died for it. Everyone had. Torres was resting in the medical bay, recovering from a fractured rib. Ortiz and Green were in stable condition. The official report listed the operation as a partial success. But the truth, the real truth, felt murky, hidden behind layers of silence. Emily had seen too many things that didn't add up. The missing soldiers at Orion, the perfect timing of the ambush, the delayed air support. Someone had known they were coming. Someone had wanted them dead. She leaned back on the bunk, exhaustion finally pressing down on her. But just as sleep began to claim her, the door creaked open. Torres stood there, pale but steady, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You should be in bed," Emily said, managing a faint smile. "So should you," he replied, handing her a mug. "But I know you, Carter. Your brain's spinning too fast to sleep." She took a sip. "You ever get the feeling we're fighting ghosts?" He frowned. "What do you mean?" "Someone set us up, sir. The ambush, the timing, the silence on comms, it was all too clean. Someone fed the enemy our route." Torres didn't answer right away. He looked tired, his eyes bloodshot. "You're not wrong. I've been thinking the same thing. Then why aren't we doing something about it?" He gave a heavy sigh. "Because if this runs deep, if someone inside command is involved, we can't just point fingers." "Not yet." Emily's jaw tightened. "You think it's Grayson?" Torres didn't deny it. "He's the only one who had access to our mission file. But we need proof." Emily looked down at the flash drive. "Then let's find it." The next morning, while the base stirred awake under the pale light of dawn, Emily slipped into the comms center. The hum of computers and equipment filled the room. She plugged the flash drive into a secured terminal and began decoding its contents. The files were encrypted, but not impossible. She'd picked up enough tech skills over the years to get through the first layer. What she found made her stomach twist. Video footage from Outpost Orion. She clicked play. The camera showed a group of U.S. soldiers standing in the outpost courtyard, unaware they were being watched. Then, a sudden explosion ripped through the frame. Smoke, chaos, gunfire. The feed flickered, and then something appeared in the corner, a shadowy figure, half hidden, speaking into a radio. The voice was faint but clear. "Target confirmed. Package secured. Execute Phase 2. The transmission ended, but Emily's blood ran cold. The voice sounded American. She scrubbed the video back, listening again. Same tone, same clipped accent. Not insurgents. Not a foreign language. One of theirs. She took the footage to Torres immediately. He watched in silence, jaw tightening with each second. When the video ended, he rubbed his temples. "This is bad," he said. "Real bad. We have to report it." "To who?" Torres snapped. "Grayson's in charge of the investigation." "You think this will even make it past his desk?" Emily hesitated. "Then we go higher." Torres leaned closer. "You don't understand how this works. If someone inside Intel coordinated this, we're sitting on a powder keg. If you make the wrong move, Carter, you'll disappear before this footage ever sees daylight." She met his gaze, unflinching. "Then I'll take that risk." He stared at her for a long moment. Then, reluctantly, he said, "I'll cover for you. But whatever you do it fast." That night, Emily copied the files to a secure drive and made her way toward the communications tower. The corridors were empty, but her heartbeat was deafening. She reached the door, swiped her clearance card, and froze. Grayson was standing inside. He turned slowly, the faintest smile playing at his lips. "Working late, Carter?" Her mind raced. "Just checking data logs from Orion. Command wanted a summary." He stepped closer. "Command didn't authorize that. In fact, I didn't authorize that." The tension in the air was suffocating. Emily's hand drifted to her pocket, feeling the flash drive hidden there. Grayson's eyes narrowed. "You found something, didn't you?" "I found proof that someone leaked our mission." He chuckled softly, the kind of laugh that didn't reach his eyes. "You think you're the first one to suspect that? You're naive, Carter. This is bigger than you. Then why cover it up?" She shot back. "Because the truth doesn't win wars. It destroys them." She took a step forward. "You sent us into that ambush." He sighed, almost disappointed. "I didn't send you. I followed orders. Orders from people far above either of us." Emily's heart pounded. "You sold out your own men." "Collateral damage," he said coldly. "Do you have any idea what happens when command loses faith in its own?" "I did what was necessary to maintain control." "You call that control?" She whispered. "You call betrayal leadership?" His hand moved, too fast, reaching for his sidearm. But Emily was faster. She grabbed a nearby metal tray and slammed it into his wrist. The gun clattered to the floor. They struggled, Grayson throwing a punch that caught her jaw. Pain exploded across her face, but she didn't stop. She kneed him hard in the ribs, sending him staggering back. The flash drive slipped from her pocket, skidding across the floor. Grayson dove for it, but Emily tackled him. The two crashed against a console, alarms blaring as the system shorted. Sparks flew. He shoved her off, gasping, "You don't know what you're doing." She scrambled to her feet, the flash drive in her hand. "No," she said, breathless. "I know exactly what I'm doing." And then she ran. Security sirens echoed through the base. Emily sprinted down the corridor, boots pounding the floor. Over the loudspeakers, Grayson's voice roared, "Private Emily Carter is to be detained immediately. She's in possession of classified materials and is considered a threat to national security." Her pulse thundered. He was turning the whole base against her. She ducked into the hangar, weaving between parked vehicles. Torres was there, standing near a transport chopper. When he saw her, his eyes widened. "What the hell did you do?" "I found proof, and Grayson tried to kill me." "Jesus, Emily." He looked toward the base gates. Armed soldiers were already spreading out. "We have to get this footage to someone outside command," she said desperately. "If Grayson destroys it, Orion dies with it." Torres hesitated only a second before nodding. "All right, you're getting out of here." He led her to the chopper, shouting to the pilot. "Emergency dispatch. Medical evac for Bravo Operative Carter. Urgent clearance." The pilot nodded, confused but compliant. As she climbed aboard, Torres grabbed her arm. "Wherever you go, don't trust anyone until that file's in safe hands." She nodded, her throat tight. "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." Before she could protest, he shoved her inside and slammed the door. The chopper lifted, blades slicing through the night. Below, Emily saw Torres turning toward the oncoming soldiers, arms raised as if surrendering, but his eyes were fierce. Then the radio crackled. "Carter, this is Torres. You keep running until the truth is louder than their lies." The signal cut out. As the base disappeared beneath her, Emily looked down at the flash drive clenched in her fist. Her whole life, her career, her name had just been erased with a single order. She was no longer a soldier, no longer safe. But she was free. Free to tell the truth. Free to finish what had begun at Orion. And as the helicopter cut across the dark horizon, Emily Carter swore to herself. She wouldn't stop until everyone who betrayed them was brought to light, no matter the cost. The helicopter cut through the pre-dawn sky, its blades slicing the cold air. Emily clutched the flash drive tightly, every muscle tense with anticipation and fear. Below her, forward operating base Carson shrank into a grid of lights, shadows, and chaos. Torres had bought her time, but she knew it was only a matter of hours before the entire base realized what she had done. The plan was simple, yet impossibly dangerous. Get the evidence into the hands of a trusted external intelligence officer, expose the betrayal, and survive long enough to ensure justice. Her first stop was a liaison office in the nearest Allied city, a temporary safe house run by U.S. intelligence. The pilot, sensing the urgency, pushed the chopper faster than protocol allowed, navigating treacherous mountain passes and turbulent winds. Emily's mind replayed the events at Orion and the base. Grayson's face, twisted with rage and fear, flashed in her mind. He nearly killed us. He tried to destroy the truth. He underestimated me, and she wasn't going to make the same mistake again. Hours later, the chopper landed in a secluded area near the safe house. Emily disembarked quickly, checking for tracking devices or surveillance drones. Her instincts screamed caution. She moved like a shadow, every step calculated. Inside, she met Agent Moreno, a seasoned intelligence officer who had a reputation for discretion. He eyed the flash drive and nodded. "Private Carter," he said, his tone even. "I've heard about you. Looks like you've done more than your share of firefights." Emily handed him the drive. "Everything you need to expose Grayson. Orion, the ambush, everything." He studied it carefully. "This is explosive. Are you sure you can handle what happens next? Once this goes public, there's no turning back." "I don't care," she said firmly. "I can't let them get away with it." Moreno leaned back, impressed. "All right. We'll move fast. The right channels, the right people. Justice, Carter. You'll finally get it." Back at forward operating base Carson, Grayson's fury was unmatched. The base was in lockdown, guards searching every vehicle, every corridor, every soldier. He knew she had the drive, and he knew he had underestimated her. Torres had barely survived the chase, hiding in his supply crate until the helicopters were gone. He understood now. Carter wasn't just a soldier, she was a force of nature. And Grayson would pay for every betrayal. Grayson barked orders, but morale was collapsing. Soldiers whispered about Carter, her actions, and the undeniable truth. The command structure that had once been untouchable began to crack. Meanwhile, Emily watched the sunrise from the safe house balcony. The city stretched below her like a miniature battlefield. Her muscles ached, her skin was covered in dust and sweat, but she felt an unfamiliar sensation, clarity. She knew Grayson wouldn't go quietly. He would fight back, probably try to discredit her, or even take the law into his own hands. But now, she held the ultimate weapon, proof. Within 24 hours, the story went public. Moreno had secured a trusted chain to high-ranking officials outside Grayson's control. News of the ambush at Orion, the leaked mission files, and Grayson's betrayal shook the military establishment. Investigations were launched immediately. Emily sat quietly in the safe house as statements were taken, her mind replaying the battle over and over. She felt no relief, not yet. She still had a confrontation to face. Then came the call. "Carter, you're cleared to return. Grayson is being detained for questioning. Your presence is required for a controlled debrief." She exhaled slowly. It was time. The next day, Emily entered a secure military courtroom. The room was silent, every eye on her as she walked past. She saw Grayson sitting in the defendant's chair, his arrogance gone, replaced by fear. The commanding officer looked at her. "Private Carter, we understand you have information critical to this case." Emily nodded. "Yes, sir. Everything you need to know is on this drive." She held it up, her hands steady. "This contains evidence of betrayal, ambush planning, and obstruction of command. It proves what happened at Orion and who was responsible." Grayson tried to speak, but no one listened. Emily's composure and credibility dominated the room. Every lie he had tried to cover up was exposed by her meticulous reporting and undeniable evidence. The hearing was tense. Grayson's allies tried to spin the story, but soldiers who had survived the Orion mission testified in Emily's favor. Torres, Ortiz, and even Green recounted her leadership under fire, her strategic thinking, and her unwavering courage. One by one, the pieces fell into place. Grayson's orders, the delay in air support, and his attempts to suppress the flash drive were all laid bare. The courtroom atmosphere shifted from skepticism to awe. Emily hadn't just survived. She had led, planned, and acted with precision beyond her rank. Finally, after hours of testimony, the commanding officer leaned forward. "Private Carter, your bravery and leadership have not only saved lives, but ensured that justice is served. For your actions, you are awarded the Medal of Honor, and your unit's survival is directly attributed to your courage." Emily's throat tightened. She had never sought glory, only survival, and to ensure that no one else would be betrayed the way Orion's team had been. Grayson, stripped of rank and facing criminal charges, glared at her one last time. Emily met his eyes evenly, unflinching. "You underestimated me," she said softly. "You'll regret this," he hissed. Emily turned and walked out. For the first time in months, she felt a sense of peace. She had not only survived ambushes and gunfire, she had survived betrayal, corruption, and fear itself. In the weeks that followed, Emily returned to her unit, not as the quiet recruit from Maple Ridge, but as a leader. Soldiers looked at her differently now, not with surprise, but with respect, admiration, and trust. She spent hours mentoring, training, and guiding new recruits. Her story became a symbol of resilience, that courage isn't just about facing bullets, but about standing up when the system itself is broken. Torres caught her one evening on the base roof, overlooking the desert. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. "Together. No one survives alone in this life." He smiled. "Guess you finally proved them all wrong." Emily stared at the horizon, the sun painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. "Not them," she said quietly. "I proved it to myself. That's what counts." And as the wind swept across the desert, carrying the scent of dust, fuel, and gunpowder, Emily Carter knew one undeniable truth. No one expected her to fight. No one expected her to survive. But she did. And she had saved her team. Her name would never be forgotten.